Let's take a look at person-based compensation structures. The majority of applications of skill-based pay have been in manufacturing. An advantage of skill-based plans is that people can be deployed in a way that better matches the flow of work, thus avoiding bottlenecks as well as idle hands. Skill-based structures link pay to depth or breadth of skills, abilities, and knowledge a person acquires that are relevant to the work. The wage attaches to the person. In contrast, a job based plan pays employees for the job to which they're assigned, regardless of the skills they possess. Employees in a multi skill system earn pay increases by acquiring new knowledge, but the knowledge is specific to a range of related jobs. Pay increases come with certification of new skills rather than job assignments. Employees can then be assigned to any of the jobs for which they're certified based on the flow of work. The skills on which to base a structure need to be directly related to the organization's objectives and strategy. One of the main advantages of a skill based plan is that it facilitates matching people to a changing workflow. Employees like the potential of higher pay that comes with learning. And by encouraging employees to take charge of their own development, skill based plans may give them more control over their work life. The fluid work assignments that skill based plans permit encourage employees to take responsibility for the complete work process and its results with less direction from supervisors. Person based plans have the potential to clearly define new standards and behavioral expectations. The process for determining a skill based structure begins with an analysis of skills. Related skills can be grouped into a skill block. Skill blocks can be arranged by levels into a skill structure. To build the structure, a process is needed to describe, certify, and value the skills. The major skill analysis decisions include what is the objective of the plan, what information should be collected, what methods should be used, who should be involved, and how useful are the results for pay purposes. Skill analysis is a systematic process of identifying and collecting information about skills required to perform work in an organization. Employee involvement is almost built into skill based plans. Employees and managers are the source of information of defining the skills, arranging them into a hierarchy, and building them into skill blocks. Organizations may use peer review, tests, or demonstrations to certify that employees possess skills that are able to apply them. Many plans require that employees be recertified, since skills may be rusty or they might not be used frequently. Skill based plans are generally well accepted by employees because it's easy to see the connection between the plan, the work, and the size of a paycheck. Skill based plans become increasingly expensive as the majority of employees become certified at the highest pay levels. As a result, the employer may have an average wage higher than competitors who are not using skill based plans. Some employers are combating this by requiring that employees stay at a rate at a certain amount of time before they can take the training to move to a higher rate. The question then is whether this increase in labor cost is more offset by gains in productivity, quality, customer responsiveness, flexibility, or worker retention. The bottom line is that skill based approaches may only be short term incentives for specific settings. Let's take a look at competencies. All approaches to creating a pay structure begin by looking at work performed in an organization. While skill and job based systems hone in on information about specific tasks, try to define the broadly applicable knowledge, skills, and behaviors that form the foundation for success at any level in an organization. These are core competencies. Core competencies are often linked to mission statements that express an organization's philosophy, values, business strategy, and plans. Competency sets translates each core competency into action, and competency indicators are observable behaviors that indicate the level of competency within each set. The competency indicators anchor the degree of competency required at each level of complexity of work. Sometimes the behavioral anchors might include scales of the intensity of action, the degree of impact of action, its complexity, and or the amount of effort that's expended. Competencies are becoming a collection of observable behaviors that require no interpretation and that excellent performers exhibit much more consistently than average performers. Competencies are chosen to ensure that all critical needs of the organization are met. They more loosely apply to work requiring more tactic knowledge, such as in managerial and professional work. Advocates of competencies say that they empower employees to take charge of their own development. However, critics of competencies worry that basing pay on personal characteristics is outdated in practice. Competencies, in effect, provide guidelines for behavior and keep people focused. They can also provide a common basis for communicating and working together. This latter possibility has become increasingly important as organizations go global. Competencies may have value for personal development and communicating organization direction. However, the subjectivity of competencies make them a risky foundation for a pay system since they bear little connection to the work employees do. A number of processes for classifying competencies have been proposed, often into three groups. Personal characteristics. Employees are expected to come in the door with characteristics like integrity, flexibility, respect, and then develop and demonstrate them in increasingly complex and ambiguous job situations. Next, there's visionary. These are the highest level competencies. They might be expressed as taking the initiative in moving the organization in new directions and understanding trends in the marketplace, in world events, and in the local community. Third and finally, the organization specific. Between the above two groups are the competencies that are tied specifically to a particular organization and the function where they're being applied. They generally include leadership, customer orientation, and functional expertise. Like compensable factors, competencies are derived from executive leadership belief about the organization and its strategic intent. However, not all employees understand that connection. The heart of the person based plan is that employees get paid for relevant skills or competencies they possess, whether or not those skills are used. Competency based plans assume that if people are to be paid based on their competencies, then there must be some way to demonstrate or certify to all concerned that a person possesses that level of competency. Well, the notion of competencies may have value in identifying what distinguishes typical from truly outstanding performance. There is a debate on whether competencies can be translated into a measurable, objective basis for pay. The basic question remains: is it appropriate to pay you for what I believe you are capable of doing versus what you actually are doing? It is likely more effective for pay purposes to focus on what is easily measurable and directly related to organization success. Job and person based procedures are designed to manage an internal pay structure that helps the organization succeed. As with job based evaluation, the final result of a person based plan is an internal structure of work in the organization. This structure should reflect the organization's internal alignment policy and support its business operations. Managers must also ensure the structure remains internally aligned by reassessing work, skills, or competencies as necessary. In practice, when evaluating higher value, non routine work, the distinction between job versus person based approaches blurs. The focus is on what factors, both job and person, create value for an organization. The person influences the job content in managerial and professional work. Skill based fits more easily with manufacturing work. Through contemporary manufacturing, work does not require a component of tactic, non routine, work like problem solving. Whatever plan is designed, whether job based or person based, a crucial issue is the fairness of its administration. In research studies on job based evaluation, it is treated as a measurement device. The research assesses its reliability, validity, cost, and its compliance with laws and regulation. In contrast, research on person based structures tends to focus on effects on behavior and organizational objectives and ignores questions of reliability and validity. A reliable evaluation would be one where different evaluators produce the same results. That is important because in practice, several different people usually evaluate jobs. The results should not depend on which person did the evaluation. Reliability can be improved by using evaluators who are familiar with the work and trained in job evaluation. Validity refers to the degree to which the evaluation assesses what it's supposed to, the relative worth of jobs to the organization. Many studies report that when different job evaluation plans are compared to each other, they generate very similar rankings of jobs, but they disagree on how much to pay those jobs. For managing compensation, the correct standard is the pay structure, what job holders get paid rather than simply the job's rank order. Studies of the degree to which different job evaluation plans produce the same results start with the assumption that if different approaches produce the same results, then those results must be correct, that is, valid. Several methods are used to assess and improve employee acceptability. An obvious one is to include a formal appeal process. Employees who believe their jobs are evaluated incorrectly should be able to request reanalysis or skill reevaluation. Pay differences in jobs held by men, women, and people of color have focused attention on internal pay structures. Much of this attention has been directed at job evaluation as both a potential source of bias against women and a mechanism to reduce bias. However, there's no evidence that the job evaluator's gender affects results. In contrast to gender of a job holder or an evaluator, the evidence on compensable factors and bias is less clear. One study found that compensable factors related to job content did reflect bias against work done predominantly by women, but factors pertaining to employee requirements did not. The second potential source of bias affects job evaluation indirectly through the current wages paid for a job. If job evaluation is based on current wages paid and the jobs held predominantly by women are underpaid, then the results simply mirror bias in current pay rates. Several recommendations seek to ensure that job evaluation plans are bias free. First, to define the compensable factor and scales to include the content of jobs held predominantly by women. Second, to ensure the factor weights are not consistently biased against jobs held predominantly by women. Are factors usually associated with these jobs always given less weight? Finally, to apply the plan as a bias free as possible or as feasible. ensure that job descriptions are bias free, exclude incumbent names from the evaluation process, and train diverse evaluators. Little attention has been paid to assessor training or validating the certification process. Employment tests used for hiring and promotion decisions must be demonstrably free of legal bias. It seems logical that certification procedures used to determine pay structures would require the same. Managers whose employers use job based plans focus on placing the right people in the right job. A switch to skill or competency based plans reserves this procedure. Now, managers must assign the right work to the right people, that is, those with the right skills and competencies. A job based approach controls costs by paying only as much as the work performed is worth, regardless of any greater skills the employee may possess. In contrast, skill or competency based plans pay employees for the highest level they've achieved regardless of the work they perform. This maximizes flexibility, but it also encourages all employees to become certified at top rates. Unless an employer can either control the rate to which employees can certify skill or competency mastery or employ fewer people, the organization may experience higher labor costs than competitors using job based approaches. In addition to having potentially higher rates and higher training costs, skill and competency plans may become as complex and burdensome as job based plans. So, what is the best approach to pay structures? The answer is it depends. The best approach may be to provide sufficient ambiguity to afford flexibility to adapt to changing conditions. Bases for pay that are too vaguely defined will have no credibility with employees, will fail to signal what's really important for success, and may lead to suspicions of favoritism and bias. An internally aligned pay structure can be designed to help determine pay for a wide variety of work throughout an organization. It can also ensure that pay influences people's behavior and directs them towards organizational objectives.